Behind the scenes on this channel, I'm always improving, like using this Theosaurus when I write these flashlight librettos, or taking some acting classes, or getting a new lens that enables me to shoot in less light for my new video for the Manker MK34, which goinggear.com provided for review. The flashlight, of course, and not the $1,100 lens. The Manker MK34 is a compact, bright AF portable, small, tiny little searchlight. Think of a similar size and form factor to the Olight Marauder and the Noctigon Meteor, two reviews of mine you should totally watch after this review is over. Those lights and this light make use of multiple cells and multiple Cree emitters to make more light than you have ever thought was possible out of a small flashlight. In fact, even big flashlights. The MK34 I'm reviewing specifically uses 12 Nichia 219C neutral white emitters in 3 clusters of 4 LEDs. Nichias are popular choices for color rendering and good tints when used in fancy flashlights like this one. And if someone asks me to describe the tint, which they will, I'd say it's a creamy but not overly orange, neutralish white light. I'd estimate somewhere in the low 4,000 Kelvin range. It's constructed out of aircraft grade aluminum and built like a tank. And as I say that out loud, a tank made from aluminum sounds like a pretty crappy tank. So maybe it's a bad analogy. Here are some basic dimensions to give you an idea of weight and size and add some extra time to the review. And you being the helpful guy you are, like, hey man, I have a suggestion. You could always cut out a few jokes. And I know for these things, people often say, hey, that's a lot smaller than I thought. Let's do a shot of a human holding these lights in their hand, and hopefully my acting classes have paid off. Alright, for this scene, why don't we use as your inspiration, say you're a guy in your late 30s who makes YouTube videos in his spare time. Alright, go. Okay, so Manker says the MK34 needs 3 high-drain unprotected cells capable of a 20 amp discharge. The 20 amp discharge also happens to be the plot of a Little Red Spider-Man comic where Electro visits the urologist. And if you don't know what any of that means, just know Manker sells cells homonym that fit this light, which is what I used for all of my testing. Protected cells will not work in this light because they're too long. But that's okay because the light has built-in a low voltage cutoff. The 20 amp figure 2 may be a little high because I also tested the light with Sanyo 18650 GAs, which I've used in several of my reviews. Those are unprotected cells which are rated at 10 amps and they work fine. And I've read other places online where multiple people report using these cells and the light is pretty chill with it. And if you take anything away from this review, it's don't use protection, which may have been how Electro... You know what, never mind. The particular light provided to me comes in a box with a manual, a spare O-ring, a lanyard, the light, and 3 high-drain batteries. So let's go over the output levels. And please note that the Moonlight is assignable to any of 11 possibilities in the engineering mode, which I'll get into later. From below 0.2 lumens to 182 lumens, which doesn't really sound like a Moonlight, does it? And let me just note that I think there may be an issue with my particular sample because Manker does not list the Moonlight modes going that high. I set my Moonlight to level 6 for my output section. However, I will list all the Moonlight modes as I've tested them. Don't expect yours to be exactly like mine, but I'll have you know that if you program Moonlight to its lowest level, it's lower than any Moonlight mode that I have ever seen, even lower than Army Techs or Zebra Lights or this Olight here or whatever else I have sitting here. Okay, first is Moonlight. Again, we're setting it to its 6th lowest level out of a possible of 11. I showed you the lowest level possible in the shot just right before this. Then is low. My figures and Mankers are on screen. Next is medium. 1. Again, my camera is set to manual so you can see the brightness differences between each level. Next is medium. 2. No visible PWM is apparent on any of these modes. Then is high. Now, I haven't seen Manker's figures for the 219Z version of this light, The manufacturer's specs on these lower modes are for the brighter XPG3 version. Then is Turbo. Also, Turbo is incorrectly measured as ANSI rated at 8,000 lumens. ANSI specs state that you measure the light at 30 seconds after startup. The light has a 22 seconds drop down, which you have seen or will see here, depending on how long this takes to get here. The 22-second timer keeps it from overheating because the light is tiny, so my highest measured output is at startup, but I provided my figures to what it steps down to at 30 seconds. So Manker rates all of their modes except Turbo by ANSI standards, although they don't say that. Also, you can reset the Turbo timer by turning the light off and back on. Now, I've read other user reports on all versions of this light, and the 22-second step down is consistent with other people who own this light. I've seen the XPG3 version testing as high as 7,500 lumens at startup, so go with the XPG3 version if you want the brightest burst mode, and the Nichia is if you want better color rendering. Okay, user interface time. And you thought the output part was tedious. Wake up! The light uses an electronic switch, so that means there's a very low standby power drain when the light is off, and that would take years to fully drain the batteries. There's an electronic lockout mode, which Manker describes as one click double triple from any mode to lock out the flashlight. Well, that makes no sense, so I couldn't figure out how to do that, but you can always give the battery tube a slight twist to lock it out when carrying it in your tactical purse. To turn the light on and scroll through the modes of any of its main modes, just click the button once. Okay, give it short clicks or presses to advance modes, going through Moon, Low, Medium 1, Medium 2, and High, and then back downward, then back upward. It doesn't loop like most flashlights do. Okay, to turn it off, give it a slightly longer press and release when it turns off. To access Turbo from on or off, just double click. Again, Turbo lasts about 22 seconds before hitting a hard step down to keep the light from getting too hot to handle or turning into liquid like the T1000. You can reset the Turbo timer, but please note every time you do this, the head continues to heat up until it gets too hot to hold. I'm pretty sure there's a joke in there somewhere. Also, it has mode memory for the main modes other than Moonlight or Turbo. Just press and hold while from off to get to the last mode you use before you turn the light off. To get to strobe, you know why you bought the light, you need to get to Turbo first, which hopefully won't make you mad. So double click, you're in Turbo, then click once to go through full strobe, then SOS for you seamen, then quick flash beacon, then battery check, which I've never had the patience to watch because I have a battery charger with a voltage readout. Then off. To get into engineering mode, which is just a fancy way of saying programming your Moonlight mode, turn the light on, then press and hold to turn it off. And when the button glows under your finger, press it 4 times rapidly, and you can get to Moonlight engineering setting mode, to any of the 11 steps I mentioned earlier. There may be a few other things in the UI, but that's the basic overview. I'm really trying not to make this 20 minutes long. Please shoot me if I do. Also, to reset Turbo while it's on, it takes 2 clicks to go to the other mode group, and then another 2 clicks to get back to Turbo loop. Now it's runtime, time. I use the included batteries unless specifically noted. First is Turbo with the Manker branded 2500 mAh high drain batteries. You get that drop down from 49-ish 100 lumens to 1500-ish lumens at about 22 seconds in. I'm rounding here, not the 22 seconds. Then continuous brightness until 1 hour and 35 minutes before it starts dimming with the hard end to the brightness at 1 hour and 37 minutes in. My ending voltage during all my battery tests was in the low 3.0 range, which is a good, safe voltage cutoff range. Turbo again, but we're going to use higher capacity batteries. Want longer runtimes? Get a set of Sanyo GAs. The included batteries are rated to 2500 milliamp hours, and these are rated for 3500 milliamp hours. You get that hard step down from 4900 lumens to 1500 lumens, and it continues for about 2 hours before it starts dimming and cuts off at about 2 hours and 7 minutes. You get about 30 more minutes of runtime this way. high with the included Manker batteries. No more Sanyo tests. You get solid light for about an hour and 30 minutes. Then after that, you get some step downs in brightness for the next 30 minutes before it cuts off at 2 hours and 7 minutes. And whoever thought there was going to be some dude on the internet that describes a flashlight dimming? I never did. Medium 2 gives you a nicer runtime with around 1000 lumens for a mostly steady 2 hours. Then it starts dropping down, and then the light declines for a while. You get a total end runtime of about 2 hours and 48 minutes on Medium 2. And I promise this is the last one, which is Medium 1. You get 4 hours and 43 minutes of light with around 400 to 500 lumens. After some declining light, it cuts off at about 5 hours and 14 minutes, but you can see that. I should start telling jokes in these areas, but I don't know any more flashlight jokes. Sorry, the book is not that large. Beam shots. Okay, I've said it before, but this video marks a better lens for my outdoor night stuff. While most people may not notice or even care, my lens is wider and shows more of the yard and picks up more of the light, as this handy dandy lens comparison does right here. The lens used is a 10.5mm Voigtlander 0.95. It's a manual focus lens and manual iris on the Micro Four Thirds mount. You can look it up. But this video has been shot almost entirely on it, not the runtime sections though. Okay, so here are the lights I'll be comparing the Manker to. The Manker is the third brightest light I own behind the X7 and the Noctigon Meteor. It hovers around $130 in price. First is the Manker. The beam is nice and even with a brighter center and a nice fall off to the spill light. It is compact because of the optics. It's not super throwy, and it's considered more of a floody light. Then is the Olight X7, the brightest light I own. Note the much cooler tint of the light, and its brightness is about 4,000 lumens more. Back to the Manker for a second. Comparisons, bro. Then the Noctigon Meteor, which at a little over 7,000 lumens, makes it my second brightest light. And note, all output figures here are my tested figures and not manufacturer specs. That's how it's been in my reviews for quite some time now. Back to the Manker for a few seconds. Again, my third brightest light. By the way, all lights seen in this beam shot section I have reviewed, so watch them all. Now the Olight R50 Seeker. I like to do less bright lights for context. This one's cooler and a little more throwy. That means the center should be a hair more intense than the much brighter Manker. Again, I prefer neutral and warmer tints to cool ones. Okay. Now the Nitecore TM16 GT, the throwiest light in the whole bunch. The center is also the brightest because of the lots of candela. Remember in the pictures below, lumens are light output and candela is how far throw is measured. Higher numbers in the candela will mean brighter hot spots and it will carry further distances. Back to the Manker. A floody light, and not as much like a spotlight like the last one. See, more of the light is to the edges. It has more light that doesn't travel as far. Then to the hike light. The biggest light in the bunch. The second throwiest, not the brightest, it's just big. Yeah, so that's a pretty cool light. Back to the Manker for a second. Both lights have a neutralish to warm tint. And context now with the less bright Zebralight SC600. This is considered a everyday carry size light and it puts out over 1,000 lumens. The Manker is too big for the pocket. But I like including a 1,000 lumen light because it gives those people who say in the comments these lights aren't bright context to what a more common lumen amount looks like on video. Videos look different than your eyes. I know you paid $250 for your 500 lumen Surefire, but that doesn't make it brighter than a 5,000 lumen light. It just makes it more expensive. Okay, some parting thoughts and specs. The Manker MK34 is waterproof to IPX8 standards, so it handles temporary shallow submersions of less than 2 meters or this cooler I have laying around with water in it. It's also drop proof to 1.5 meters. I'm going to throw it on this carpet so I don't ding up the outside of it. Although if you drop it and hit it hard enough, the light will be interrupted for a brief period like you saw there. This isn't a weapon light. It does handle a standard tripod mount for people who need a light on a tripod at night. While this light isn't 8,000 lumens, it's still bright and relatively affordable for the price. The Olight Marauder is about $200, This one's about 130 to 150, depending on if you get the package with the included batteries, like I have, or the one without the batteries. Although you can still find the Meteor for about $130 too. Despite its high output, you won't find a light with a lower Moonlight mode. This comes in handy when you need to preserve night vision when outside at night or walking around the house or campsite. Not even my Zebra light offers a lower white light Moonlight mode. It's so dim you can't even tell the LEDs are lit in the daylight if you use the two lowest settings. This would make an excellent light for night photography or stargazing. In order for you to see it though, your eyes will have to be adjusted to the dark. Otherwise, it's useless. There's probably not a better light considering its unparalleled brightness range for someone who wants really high output and the lowest output. I would estimate the lowest mode is probably under 0.01 lumens. Anyway, if you like this review and like this light, remember to buy it at goinggear.com, who provided this for review. Give the video a thumbs up, comment, share it with your friends or people you don't even like. Follow me on Instagram, and thanks to all of my subscribers for helping me finally hit the 10,000 subscriber mark. Hopefully the hard work and money I put into gear behind the scenes shows. Thanks for watching.